No microphone. No sound.
There's no sound.
I want to get more. In front of her mouth. Okay. Okay, I'm going to read verses 1 to 3, then I'm going to hop over to 11, from 11 to 32. It's in Luke chapter 15. CEV, I'm happy to say. And this is it. One sheep. Tax collectors and sinners were all crowding around to listen to Jesus. So the Pharisees and the teachers of the law of Moses started grumbling. This man is friendly with sinners. He even eats with them. Then Jesus told them this story. 2 sons. Once a man had 2 sons. The younger son said to his father, "Give me my share of the property." So the father divided his property between his 2 sons. Not long after that, the younger son packed up everything he owned and left for a foreign country. He wasted all his money in wild living. He had spent everything when a bad famine spread through the whole land. Soon he had nothing to eat. He went to work for a man in that country, and the man sent him out to take care of his pigs. He would have been glad to eat what the pigs were eating, but no one gave him a thing. Finally, he came to his senses and said, "My father's workers have plenty to eat, and here I am starving to death. I will go to my father and say to him, 'Father, I have sinned against God in heaven and against you. I am no longer good enough to be called your son. Treat me like one of your workers.' The younger son got up and started back to his father. But when he was still a long way off, his father saw him and felt sorry for him. He ran to his son and hugged and kissed him. The son said, 'Father, I have sinned against God in heaven and against you. I am no longer good enough to be called your son.' But his father said to the servants, 'Hurry and bring the best clothes and put them on him. Give him a ring for his finger and sandals for his feet. Get the best calf and prepare it so we can eat and celebrate. This son of mine was dead, but has now come back to life. He was lost and has now been found.' And they began to celebrate. The older son had been out in the field, but when he came near the house, he heard the music and dancing. So he called one of the servants over and asked, 'What's going on here?' The servant answered, 'Your brother has come home safe and sound, and your father ordered us to kill the best calf.' The older brother got so angry that he would not even go into the house. His father came out and begged him to go in. But he said to his father, 'For years I have worked for you like a slave and have always obeyed you, but you have never even given me a little goat so that I could give a dinner for my friends. This other son of yours wasted your money on prostitutes. And now that he has come home, you ordered the best calf to be killed for a feast.' His father replied, 'My son, you are always with me, and everything I have is yours. But we should be glad and celebrate. Your brother was dead, but he is now alive. He was lost and has now been found. Amen.
I think some of you might be smiling, especially if you did in some of my earlier Bible studies, like 15 years ago or more. Most of you didn't really like that story, did you?
No, I don't like.
See, you're in church, so you were the good boy or the good girl, right? And boy, that little jerky son, you know, he's gone. We don't know how long. But then here you've been at your dad's side, you've done everything you could, you've taken care of him, you've sweat, you've labored, and here this kid takes the money, goes crazy, spends it all, has nothing left, and then he comes home with his tail behind him, and then Dad gets really excited. Really excited. Oh, look at his arms. Oh, let me get you some clothes, and oh, ring for your finger, and sandals for your feet, and oh, let's get the best calf we have, and we're going to have it prepared for you. We're going to have a big party for you. And what did you do for your older kid, or the good kid? Nothing. Take it for granted, right?
Right.
Yeah. Except some of you may be shocked to hear that I think that being taken for granted is the biggest compliment anyone can do to you. Think about it. If you truly take somebody for granted, you have that much faith in them that they will always be there when you ask them to help, that they are the kind of person you can always depend on. But I know you don't like that. And every time I teach this story, when we have Bible study, there's more, you might say, pushback. And the more I hear your complaints, the more I love this story. It is one of my favorite stories.
No.
Because I don't know about you, but I've never experienced unconditional love from a human being. There are always strings attached. And the worst people are your parents. If you had a parent that gave you unconditional love, oh gosh, you're blessed. I always tell people, if you want to have unconditional love, get a dog. You can step on its tail, you can be in a bad mood, and they still will love you. Will people do the same thing for you? Probably not. I'm just thinking of some examples of what I've experienced in my life. One of them was a woman who was in a convalescent hospital for a long, long time. And she had kids who always were there with her, taking care of her both financially, emotionally, spiritually, you name it. Always there visiting her, not just one day a week, but several days a week. And then there's this kid who really could care less, who shows up about once every 6 months, like, well, I'm obligated, I should see Mom. So the kid shows up, and what does Mom say to the other kids? Oh, did you see how Johnny looked? Oh, he was so wonderful, and I hear he's doing well on his job, and all this and that. You don't want to hear that, do you? I mean, you've been there every single week, several times, and here's this, once every 6 month kid, and what does Mom do? Talk and talk and talk about the wayward son. And the reason she does it, she doesn't see it very often. So she's really excited, right? So she talks about him and gets all excited, and you're thinking, I've been there for you all the time, and what do I get? Complaints, right? It happens all the time. Another example I can think of is a person who did go astray and got into drugs and was eventually killed. And there was a funeral, and Dad didn't even show up because Dad was convinced this kid's going to hell and he doesn't want to join him. So the dad boycotts the funeral. Is that unconditional love? No, it isn't. Because when we start looking at ourselves, we can also see some of the imperfect things that we've done. But no, it's really easy, especially to point out to something that has a very, very negative view of, as far as society is concerned. He was into drugs, he got what he deserved. Excuse me, do you think God would do that? No. Not according to this story. My favorite of all stories that I've actually witnessed myself was a lady, I'll call her Maggie. Maggie was married to a man who had an alcohol problem. And when Maggie's little son was about, I think he was about 9, the dad went out driving and he hit a parked car. And he also didn't believe in seatbelts, so he went flying through the front window. He didn't die instantly. He lived long enough so that the hospital bills beyond the insurance were sky high. And that poor woman was totally dependent on herself to make ends meet. And she raised her son with great care and great love. You can't say anything bad about her as a mom. Then she didn't have enough money for him to go and have a car, so she didn't know what he would do with the car. Like a lot of kids in high school, you know, they drive all these lovely things. Well, he didn't. So he went off to college and lived there in the dorms, so he wouldn't know about his habits. Well, anyway, after he finished college, got a really good job, he went out. He was like in his early 20s. He went out. He had a car by that time because he paid for it himself. And he went out, and he got in a horrible accident. He rear-ended somebody at a fairly high speed, and they had, you know, whiplashes and things like that. Now, nobody died, so that's really good, but they had really severe whiplashes. And of course, he's in a lot of trouble. Now, what a lot of people do when they go out driving and drinking, they will call like 1-800-NO-CUFFS, or something like that, advertised on the radio. We'll get you out of, we often get people out of DUIs. Come to us. Mom said, I'm taking this one. She didn't punish him. She said to him, 1, I'm not bailing you out of jail. So he had to wait over the weekend and go before the court. Secondly, we're not calling 1-800-NO-CUFFS. You're going to take responsibility for what you've done. Now that isn't punishment. That is consequences for bad decisions. You see the difference? She's not punishing you. When you make bad decisions in life, there are consequences. So what they did, because it was his first offense, the judge gave him 6 months without a driver's license, so he couldn't drive. And he had to go to like AA meetings, and he had to find another way for transport. I think he had something like Uber or Lyft or something like that. And he had to take responsibility for what he did. And so when he finally got his driver's license back, what are those ignition systems that you have to breathe in it? You know what I'm talking about? Yeah. And the car won't start if you have any alcohol on you or anything like that. Now, I consider that unconditional love. No, Mom wasn't happy about what he had done. No, she didn't try to bail him out and let him not take any responsibility for what he had done. But her unconditional love was that she was always there for him, every step of the way. And he did learn his lesson. He now has been sober for I think about 3 years now. And really, had he gotten out of the ticket or out of the DUI, he might have gone right out again and done it. And engaged in drinking and driving. But that's what I call unconditional love. I never had experienced unconditional love. There was always, my parents were divorced, but each one of them had a totally different idea of what I should do and what I should be. And as long as I was born the way they wanted me to be, then I was okay. But then if I wasn't, then I'd get kind of the cold shoulder. That isn't unconditional love. And on top of that, I never did have a dog. So I didn't experience unconditional love until I went to seminary. Now I have cats and they don't give me unconditional love. I go on a trip. I remember my cat Esther, I went on a trip and I was gone for over a week. I came home and she was like, all right, you think I'm going to pay attention to you? You did something I don't like. So I got the cold shoulder from the cat. But those of you who have dogs, you get...
My cat is so forgiving, you know. She's got a temper, but...
Maybe she thinks she's a dog. That's good.
Yeah, because if I say I'm sorry, a couple seconds later she's back in the kitchen.
That's good. Aw. Doggies are nice, aren't they? Right? Yeah. I love this story. Because I really would like to experience unconditional love here on earth. I know I have a God that loves me no matter what. And I can be a little stinker too. I've done some things I'm not exactly proud of. I've had things come out of my mouth that shouldn't have. But I know that God loves me, and God loves you, and God loves all of the creation that God created. May you have the experience of an adult in your life who loves you for who you are, not for what they want you to be. Amen.
Amen.